You're listening to Find the Good News, Episode 24, The Ascension, featuring Meagan Green. This episode of Find the Good News is sponsored by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. Check out our work at parkerbrandup.com. Would you like to help make sure I'm asking my guests the really good questions? Just visit findthegood.news and click the questions tab. I'll see if I can get your question dropped in the fishbowl. Each episode, my guests will dive deep, select 3 random questions, and if yours is selected, I'll ask it on the show. That's findthegood.news. Someone asked me how I go about finding good people and determining whether or not they have good news to share. When I set out to find the good news, I honestly just open a door, make an invitation, and give a person a safe and honest space to share what's in their heart and mind, to share their story. It's not hard to find the good in a person when those elements are in place. Sometimes, even if those elements aren't in place, you meet people that just give off a good vibe and that have infectious joy and energy, and you want to see what they've got going on in their life. Local artist and art teacher Meagan Green was one of those people. Another Good Newsy recommended I get in touch with Meagan for the show, and they were spot on. I got a good sense about Meagan as soon as she showed up at the studio. For 2 people who didn't know each other, we ended up sharing a lot of common territory, both spiritually and creatively. For me, as a confirmed Catholic and the father of a gay son, her lecture titled Opening a Dialogue for Queer Catholicism Through Visual Art spoke directly to me. We wandered into some interesting territory about our shared faith in this episode, and it's my hope that what we share will open minds and soften hearts. Meagan is fun and funny, and I could tell that the creative spark is working in her. Her paintings and art installations are thought-provoking, filled with meaning, and executed with the control of an artist well beyond her years. Beyond that, Meagan has been called to serve the next generation of artists as a teacher in Southwest Louisiana, pushing her students to explore new creative mediums and exposing them to modern masters that are breaking through conventional artistic boundaries. So how do I go about finding good people for this show? I just have to look. I have to listen. I'll keep doing both, because when I do, I rise up above the fuzzy and messy noise of sensationalism and see people like Meagan Green there in plain sight, right here in my community, embedded in my faith, ascending above the prejudices of the world and sharing the good news of her life and her talents with others.
Wake up, it's morning, you're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives. Discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
Stuff around you?
Well, at home, like with, a lot of my adult life is about other people.
Yeah.
So yeah. Up here, to some degree, I mean, whenever I am alone up here, it's nice.
Yeah.
And kind of getting a space,
Yeah, I had a professor in grad school, Julie Heffernan, and she always encouraged us to have like other artists' paintings and things hung up around you, kind of have an inspiration wall.
Yeah.
And, in your studio, so that you could like go and meditate or just kind of look at the other masters and be inspired.
Totally get that. I mean, I actually, kind of think about that especially in my little office when I'm up here by myself a lot. It's usually after we've closed, and it's art, but there's also pop culture stuff and just things from my childhood, people that inspire me, and I never know which one of them's going to kind of talk to me.
Yeah, it's good.
Some nights it's like I stare at Optimus Prime Transformer and I'm like, I'm going to turn him into a truck for a minute.
Or an eagle costume.
Or whatever it is.
There's a story behind that.
There is a story. I'll tell it to you, actually. We were doing I guess it was a re-election campaign for a local politician. And the goal was to kind of wrap them in the eagle, this real patriotic vibe. And so on the day before election day or the day of election day, they usually send people out with signs,
Right.
So we were going to do the whole eagle thing. There's going to be an eagle on the corner.
Like a caw.
Yeah, right. Like, hey, go vote for this guy. And then it was going to march in a parade and stuff. Well, they never could find anybody who really wanted to wear it. And so it literally never got used. Well, we had a full-size mannequin in here that was dressed in some T-shirts we had done. And so we were like, well, let's just dress the mannequin in the eagle. And that's where it's been ever since. Just
You've never had the urge to just like...
I can't fit in that.
Oh, well...
We had a guy here...
I'd totally run down Maplewood Drive in an eagle
And it looks
outfit.
like fun.
Yeah.
I know, I've looked at some of your pictures. You look like you have some fun with outfits, right?
I like dressing up. I forgot to ask, we're dressing up for the Saints tomorrow. All the teachers can dress up for the Saints.
Well, you have an outfit.
I do, but I'm probably not going to wear my gold suit.
It was so cool, though.
I might bring out Bev. That's the...
Oh, I didn't
the
see
wig
that.
Is Bev.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I call her Bev.
So the wig part is Bev, but the gold thing, I got you.
That's all Megan.
That was funny, man. I was like, and that's your profile picture right now.
Yeah, well, that was from last Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Okay.
It was my first time to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
Well, I thought maybe you just did that for a Saints game.
No.
So that's Mardi Gras.
That was Mardi Gras.
So you've got like, it's seasonal.
Yeah, we had a slew of us dressed up, so it was fun.
I remember a while back whenever, who was it? It was Jody Taylor who gave me your name. And he was like, oh, you need to talk to her. So, usually a lot of the people I don't know. So I go, well, let me go see who this person is.
You're stalking me.
Yeah, I do a little cyber stalking. I mean, honestly, it's really the way it is. I go, let me see what's going on with this person.
Before you know them.
Yeah, a little bit. Or at least what they're putting out there. And I got on your Instagram and you had one of those boomerang videos of some dance you were doing. And I was like, oh, yeah.
There's no telling. I like to do little dance videos. I think they're fun.
Yeah, well, it's
always
fun.
Like my motivation, like get my body moving. And Amanda, my girlfriend, will come in the room and she's just like, okay.
No, whenever we were chatting through Facebook and you told me who Amanda was and you started asking those questions, like, okay, you got some pretty specific information.
Yeah.
Like stuff that's not online.
Right.
So I went and looked at her picture and I was like, oh, there's no doubt. Because that family's genes are
it's very strong.
She's definitely...
Cajun genes, they all over there.
Yeah. I guess I knew Janet the best.
Okay. Yeah.
Said Janet had dated, like my girlfriend's brother.
Yeah.
And so we were all kind of together all the time. And then she worked for my dad. So it was just like a whole, for a long time, a big culture of their family was always involved.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. Small world, though.
Sulfur people.
Oh, yeah. Right on. Yeah. And they even kind of lived out. I think Norma...
further out. Yeah,
that's where we live.
Big Lake, or not Big Lake. Is it
what
Big
was that?
Woods? Big Woods.
Yeah, Big Woods. Right near Big Woods Cemetery. It used to be a shell road, way out there. Yeah. But I was kind of on that. I was out on Houston River, so it was way out there. Yeah, no, really crazy. You started throwing that details. I was like, she's got somebody
was like, ask him if da 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 da, and I was like, well, yeah.
Yeah, we don't hear Oran too often either. That's not like a very common name, So, well, when somebody suggests somebody and they're like, "Hey, you got to talk to this person," I go, "Well, okay, let's do that." But then I go, "Well, what's going on with this person?" And then when I really got online and started doing my light cyber stalking, I was like, "Wow, so you have a lot of things going on."
Yeah.
I didn't even know where to start because I initially. I'm looking for connections between, selfishly, me and that person. where do we connect?
Right.
And so there was one thing and I don't want to throw that out there right out the gate, but it was the thing that Jody brought up, and it was your lecture. And I was like, okay, I connect with that.
Right.
Because that's something that was very important to me.
Right.
And then there was the art, which but when I looked you up because of the lecture first, and then the whole art thing was a whole other thing, and then the education.
Right.
So you're an educator.
I am, yes. It's kind of hard to believe that I'm an educator because I struggled so much in school. So
what
to
gets you
claim
there?
it, what got me there?
Yeah, what gets you there?
I had really good teachers.
Yeah,
and
here in Southwest Louisiana?
Well, yeah, I'm from Sulphur, so I went to Sulphur High. I went to Maplewood Middle School.
Oh, right on,
Grew up right behind the middle school. And then I had amazing professors at McNeese that motivated me to just go for my art. And then when I went off to New Jersey to get my master's, I had amazing professors there. So, just all these people that inspired me to kind of elevate myself to that next level and share, you know, because art's about sharing in the first place. So it's kind of natural for me in that sense. And, I had teachers at McNeese that were like, well, you're just a natural teacher.
So they saw that and they were encouraging that.
Lisa Reinauer at McNeese really encouraged it and let me teach one of her drawing classes.
Really, right out of school?
Well, right after I graduated. I was kind of soul searching, trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I left McNeese and before I went to New Jersey. And she was just very encouraging, still is to this day. Super encouraging. And it's kind of nice to have, your mentors turn into friends.
I bet.
People that you can lean on all the time to kind of just guide you and help you, and because we're all still trying to figure it out, we're all still trying to understand how to teach other people every day. So
well, I mean, I think that teaching and not just in art or education, like I think teaching and sharing things with people is so important. I mean,
totally.
Even the other day, there's this conversation that's kind of interesting going online right now about garbage and litter and things like that. And I've always had this thought about this, and I feel like I can apply it to anything. And every time I start doing that, I go, this works.
Right.
It's just not as instantly gratifying as what we want.
Yeah.
And I've said this to my wife. I said, you can't make a law that's gonna stop anything.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, you can't.
You have to change hearts and minds.
Right.
And that is through teaching and showing and passing on of information and knowledge. That's slow.
Right.
It just isn't a snap of the fingers like an Infinity War. It's not like bam, it's done.
Yeah.
You don't always get to see the thing.
Right. And I mean, I think it's interesting because, you have you talk about connections. So teaching is about finding a way to make a connection so that they're hooked, right? So that they're hooked. I've taught in a lot of different locations. So I've taught, when I was in Austin, I was teaching at an art school for the Contemporary Museum over there.
Okay.
So I was teaching people that wanted to be there.
When is this? How long ago was this?
That was in about 2 years ago.
Okay. And so these people, they want to be there,
Yeah,
right?
I've been back a year.
Okay.
So I got hired on over there and I was teaching for them, and the people that were there were paying to be there.
Yeah.
So they wanted
They're
to
eager.
be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I was teaching little kids, I was teaching middle school, high school, and then adult classes.
Wow.
So all those people wanted to be there. So it was very easy to teach, there. But I was also teaching for this program called Totally Cool, Totally Art in Austin. And it was associated with the Parks and Rec department, where we would go out to recreation centers where kids are just kind of hanging out and get them excited about art. So I was teaching an urban painting class.
Wow.
And we were making murals. I was working with this guy named Jay, and he was a graffiti artist, or still is a graffiti artist, and super knowledgeable. So it was like both of our backgrounds. He's like street art smart, and I'm, fine art studied in school. And so together we kind of came together and just created this really cool atmosphere for the kids. We were like making tattoos and spray painting, stencils, all kinds of stuff. But so now I'm back in Louisiana and I'm teaching at a high school.
Which high school?
Lake Charles College Prep.
Okay.
So I don't always have the best willing audience there. So
because they may not all want to.
Right. So my job is to get them motivated, excited, and sometimes the biggest accomplishment that we can do is just to pick up the pencil that day and just do something, if it's not the assignment, finding some way to get them interacting and doing something creative. Maybe they don't want to draw, but maybe they'll open up their journal and they'll write, and for me, I think that's a win that day.
No, I agree. You're talking my language, because I talk about this on this show. If you've listened to any of it a lot, I talk about what I call a creative principle. And I really believe, because I see it when I look around the world, that creativity is like love or just like any other energy. I think it's a force, and it wants to manifest. It comes out in all kinds of ways. And sometimes we don't always, I think we tend to associate things like painting and music and the things that are the big silos that we can identify as art and creativity real easy, but it just manifests all over the place. I
mean, some of the kids, they fear it, like they fear that because they think that they can't do it because of what they think art is. So a lot of the times I have to deal with them just being frustrated and
wanting to quit, kind of like, I can't do this,
like I can't draw. I'm like, yes you can. And so I'll like pull up a Cy Twombly drawing and I'm like, look at this painting and drawing that this guy did, like, but why is it important, and trying to make connections with them, showing them contemporary artists that reflect their world at the time, so just trying to get them hooked so that they kind of get on my crazy boat.
Well, I mean, that's got to be a little tough. I mean, there's not just one way, right? I mean, you can't just look at the kids and go, here's the 5 ways I can get you interested in creativity. You probably have to, a lot of times you're dealing with one kid and trying to figure out a way to get them interested.
And most of the time it's like, I don't want to show you just a dead white guy's artwork, like, here's something that's living and breathing today that you can actually connect with, so it's a lot of work. I'm tired a lot.
I bet. I mean, it does take it out of you. Creativity. Yeah, I guess I can relate in the sense of we don't always deal with creative people in our profession, but our profession is sort of inherently creative. But we're dealing with, I hate to say suits, but a lot of time it's just corporate mentality. And so that's not creative at all. It's sort of bottom line and numbers. And so, it can exhaust you to try to create something and have a lot of thought behind it and energy in it, and then try to explain that and just know that it's really not translating.
They know what they don't know what they want, but they know what they
don't want when they see what you've done.
Exactly. So it's like,
it is a weird cycle. It can eat at you, actually. I mean, I would say, I was talking to a client who will remain anonymous, but she had said something to me about meetings and that type of thing. Now, she doesn't necessarily do what we do, but we do work together. And she said, after a while, it sort of erodes your soul. And I was like, your spirit? And I was like, I get what you're saying. She was expressing that to me. And I said, no, I understand, because I've felt that. The erosion of it,
I think it happens I think we're blessed to be able to work in our creative kind of, atmosphere.
It is a blessing, right?
It is, but then some days I'm like, well, man, should I just not do art for a real job, and so that I can kind of do my own art on the side? But then I have good days with the kids, and I'm like, dang, that was such a good day. Like, the kids are on it,
Have you ever, do you ever, I hate to say it this way, because if I'm being honest though, I've had the thought, like, did I sell out? Have you ever had like a sort of a thought like that? Like, I could just, am I really, doing my full potential creatively by doing this as a profession?
I don't know, because I've done both. Like, I've worked in the food industry. I was a barista for Starbucks for a long time. And I kind of like make do with whatever situation I'm kind of in. I complain a lot, but I like it, like I accept it. I do complain a lot.
I do too. It's my biggest problem.
We're creative people that are creative. I think they complain a lot.
I have to watch it, actually. I'll slide into a hole.
That's part of the other part of the emotional part of being an artist or a creative is just,
I think
you're just
right.
really emotional all the time, I drop at the, I just start crying for some reason. I have all these kids I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking about one kid at school that I missed an opportunity to kind of connect with them. So yeah, it's difficult.
So what's that like? I mean, bonding with these children that, you're kind of seeing them sail off, or some are going to sail off and possibly become artists or teachers because of what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, what does that feel like to begin to bond? Because I don't have that kind of thing. I've never been able to do that.
Well, it's weird because I bond with those kids that want to be artistic, but I also bond with the ones that don't.
Sure.
Because they're the ones that were like, they might just need a hug that day, or they might just need me to like leave them alone and like smile at them from afar. So it's like reading temperatures and like knowing what they need at that time. But bonding with kids, I mean, I still think about kids that I taught, in Austin or, whatever, any situation that I was in. So, but seeing them succeed, or like bringing them to McNeese to go visit the campus and see what being an actual college student there is like, and seeing that light go off in their head, or telling a student like, you're super talented, like you should pursue this, and their eyes just kind of light up and they're like, wait, I can go to school for art? And I'm like, well, yes, honey, like duh, that's what I'm here to tell you. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
You're standing here, proof that you can, and you can do this.
You might not be good in math. I wasn't either. Don't ask me to do a math problem because I can't do it. But, if you want to do this, do it. Yeah. Like, you can do it.
When did that start for you? I mean, when did you know I'm pretty good at this art thing, or I'm interested in this art thing, and this is the river I'm kind of staying in?
I fought it for a while.
Really?
When I graduated high school.
Okay.
I didn't want to turn art into a job. So I was like, well, I'm just not going to go to school for art. I'm going to go for basic studies.
That way art can stay sacred.
Fun.
And
fun and sacred.
Yeah,
it's my time.
Yeah.
And, I dropped out. I was skipping class. I wasn't going to school. And then I dropped out.
Of college?
Of McNeese.
Of McNeese,
okay. Yeah. And in that, like, I guess it was like I don't even remember how long it was, maybe 2-3 years or something, I worked. Yeah. And somebody, I think my aunt told me, she was like, you're wasting your talent. And I was like, well, I don't even think I can go back to school because I dropped out. And so she went up there with me, and admissions people were like, yeah, you can come back, and da-da-da-da-da. And I walked into the art department and met Lynn Reynolds. Yeah. He always picks because he was like, I don't even know who you were. He was like, you're like this little chubby girl that comes in with your father. He's like, and I had no idea who you were. And it just kind of hit me, and I was like, this is home. And it was kind of a calling. I went in and I found my peeps. And I knew that was where I was supposed to be, and kind of went nose to the grindstone and did it in 4 years. And then I was like, well, grad school's my thing. That's what I want to do. Yeah. So pursued that.
What do you think about the quality of the education you got?
At McNeese? Yeah. I think it's better than any other school that I can ever imagine. Yeah. Really? I mean, the camaraderie of like the students and the professors, it's just, there's such a, they're so dedicated for each student to succeed. Yeah. So I think I want my students to go to McNeese.
That's awesome. Yeah. That really is. Yeah. I mean, that's good news for somebody.
And after living away, even,
really?
I feel like that is an amazing place to kind of cultivate your creative.
That's really good to hear. I mean, when you're young, I think there's every kid maybe, and a lot of kids, it's like this idea that anything that's at home, I got to get out of here to do it. And even, I have a son who will be graduating in a couple of years, and he's creative and he's an artist, and that kind of thing. We have those conversations, and he's like, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah. I could never speak ill of the art department at McNeese. I think it is 150%, I think it is the best art education that you can get around here. I mean, when you have professors like we have over there, you can't get any better than that.
And now is kind of a special time. I mean, I might be wrong about that, but I was an artistic kid growing up too, and back when I was in high school, I didn't have the same feeling that I have now when I look around. I'm like, there's a lot more of an artistic culture and a creative vibe. Granted, it has a long way to go before it's like places like Austin, maybe, but...
Yeah, but Austin is kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a weird art scene. Like, I love Austin. I would go there all the time if I could.
Yeah.
But it's not as, community.
Yeah, that's an element that's maybe not
community.
I got you.
And it's so big,
like tribes,
it's kind of
almost
spread out. Yeah, it's kind of spread out. And I think that's what's so unique about Lake Charles is that most artists here know each other, and we speak to each other on probably like at least a monthly basis, or bump into one another, and it's just a different feel.
Yeah,
so
that's really awesome to have a community like that. I wouldn't say that the graphics design community is the same way.
Yeah, you are weird.
Yeah, it's different.
Kidding.
No, it's different. I mean, and I think it's because of the commercial side of it that there creates like sort of there's always a competitive element that's there, even if it's unsaid. It's still there.
Right.
That client, you'd like that client,
right?
Or they, you have a client somebody else would love to have, and so that even if you're, God, I hate to say it, but there's just sort of an underbelly to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just always had that sense. I mean, it's friendly enough, but it's still that competitive
distance
nature.
Kind of, between one another.
Yeah. I think it's just the commercial side of it. I mean, it's just not 100% creative.
Yeah. It's not the motivation or the emotional attachment is kind of, there's not emotional connection to the work for the clients most of the time. It's like on a professional level.
Well, our industry is interesting. This is how I perceive it, and I might be totally wrong. It might just be the experiences that I've had, but what we've found is that, and that's I think honestly it's something that can be sort of imprinted on any business. The clients that you want to work with, where you do feel like you're actually doing something that is sort of satisfying creatively and good, and good for a human being, are so small that you really can't, about a living from it. Okay. But you really do feel like you're helping a tiny, small business build up a good brand.
Right.
But you can't live on it. It's very lean. That's the ones that are satisfying to your soul and that make you feel like I've accomplished something. But the ones that create the revenue stream that you can live on and that you can have a family and you can live and just have a comfortable, normal, that's not the right word. I don't mean it the way that sounds.
Yeah, I know.
Just a very middle of the road existence, comfortable, happy life. Those are the ones that are a little less satisfying because they do take, they're a little more corporate. They're the dollars are there.
Right.
Industry type stuff.
Yeah.
So, I say all that, not saying one is bad or good, but I do feel those things. And that's really the state of our industry, really, I would say, for the most part.
Yeah. But you still enjoy it.
It's a mixed bag. I mean, if I'm being honest, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's probably like anything.
Yeah.
It's got its good things, and then it's got its
two sides.
That's just everything, and I think
Pros
that's
and cons.
that's how the way it goes.
Yeah.
Now I will say that donated work, when we do work for nonprofits, and even if it's maybe not the highest creative work that we're doing, the highest level, I feel a sense of satisfaction when I see those things out there, because I'm like, hey, they're doing a good work in the community.
You're like backing it.
I feel good to see it out there.
Yeah.
Even if it's not generating any kind of, revenue stream, I do feel satisfied when I see that they're, serving the community, or they're able to have an organized looking brand and it all really looks good, and they have the tools that they need to get their work and their message out there.
Yeah.
So that's satisfying.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say I wish in the back of my mind, secretly, I was like, I could just do that all the time. Just to serve nonprofits across the spectrum all the time and help them, elevate their brand. But you just can't. You can't do it without doing the corporate stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
I understand
that's
that.
everybody's plight, though.
You got your little bag of things that you want to do, but you can't ever touch them because you don't got the money.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Oh, man.
We all are
Lots
like
of
that.
Stuff, yeah.
So you have a show?
I do. In Kansas City, God willing that my work gets there.
Yeah.
It was supposed to open today.
Okay, it was today. I wasn't sure if it was today or tomorrow.
Yeah, it was supposed to open today, but they had a big storm and
they had a big storm.
Yeah, they had like a snowstorm. I think some people are still without electricity and stuff. Man. But my packages are en route, apparently.
Yeah.
We'll see. One got there today, but...
This is original works that are en route, right?
Yes.
How many pieces are we talking?
21, 22.
So I've never been involved in that. So you pack up your own.
Yeah,
and
I kind of went the cheap route this time, just because FedEx and UPS wanted $1,200, and.
So what'd you do?
Oh, I went postal service.
Really?
Oh yeah. Okay. U.S. Postal Service. Huh. Super cheap.
So what do you? I mean, I'm sorry. I'm very ignorant.
No,
to this.
ask all the questions.
You're talking about large scale paintings. I mean, of all size.
Yeah.
So how does this work? I mean, to protect them.
I shipped them packaged very tight.
Okay.
Very tightly, but wrapped up in bubble wrap and just.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, like precious cargo.
Shook the box really good. Make sure that there's nothing shaking around.
Yeah.
And just said a little prayer.
And they're shipped individually or together?
Oh, no, there's only 3 boxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 pretty large ones and then 1 smaller.
How many times have you done this?
Oh, this is my first, huge, big solo show.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because I would be terrified to ship off original works like that.
Well, I think at one point the artist kind of gets to a point where they're just like, get them out of my face. I don't want to look at them anymore. Right. I was kind of at that point because I had been working on these paintings since I was living in Austin. So
this
been like
is
a
that
2-year thing. But there was a move in between there and finding another. Well, actually, there was 2 moves.
Okay, so these paintings have all moved with you, right? Twice. Okay.
So getting all that kind of situated and finding my little nook where I could work and. Go into my little hole and paint on top of lesson plans and all the other stuff, and finding a job when I moved here, and it's kind of a lot.
And I'm happy, I know it.
You've probably heard me mention filming videos, building websites, creating logos, or building brands on this podcast. Well, there's a good reason for that. I'm a brand builder, and my brand is Parker Brand Creative Services. My team and I have built countless brands in the Gulf Coast region, and a lot of our work in the travel and tourism industry is experienced across the country and honestly the whole world. We have our specialties: web, logo, package, and whole brand design, as well as video production and photography. But the reality is, we function as a full-service advertising agency to businesses that don't really mesh well with larger advertising agencies or just don't want to have in-house creative departments. But don't listen to what I say. Just go to our website, parkerbrandup.com, and take a look at what we do. We're a show it, don't say it team. Okay, you should definitely say it too, but you know what I mean. That's parkerbrandup.com. We think sideways, we push forward, and we'll get your brand up.
So take this, you've earned it, a melody in chorus.
So you didn't move here for the job. You came back and then found the job.
Yeah, my partner Amanda wanted to move back home.
Okay.
So she had been in Austin for about 10 years. And after I was in Austin for almost 1.5 years, she's like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, but I just got here. You know?
It was new to you, but old to her.
I'm just doing stuff here.
Yeah.
So we moved back and... Well, the finding the job part kind of just landed in my lap. Yeah, some friends of mine saw us at church one night, and they were like, hey, there's an opening at the school that my husband works at. You should go apply. And I went on the interview and kind of just got it.
And you got it.
Yeah. So it just happened. And I forgot what the question was.
Well, no, we were just talking about packaging your art and just finding work when you came back here. I wasn't sure if you'd moved back for the job, if it was that type of situation.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I was kind of like, oh, what am I going to do when I move back? Am I going back to Starbucks,
Right.
Which would have been fine. I was fun with
That's where my daughter works right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she actually has always wanted to work there. She's enjoying it.
It's so much fun.
She does a lot of work, but...
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
People think it's just like making coffee. But
I know it's not. I told her that. I said, when you take this job, I said, I'm not I have not a phobia, but I have a distaste for lines.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's places that I just don't go because of the line, and I really like Starbucks, but I don't go.
You know that there's going to be a line.
I know, yeah. And like when I go, oh, I'll pull in and pull out. Just
there was never a line when I worked there because I was that fast.
Man, it is wild. And I told her, I was like, man, that would stress me out.
Yeah, it is very stressful. Anytime anybody says that they want to work there, I'm like, are you good at multitasking? Because you have to be able to multitask.
Once you know a job like that, though, you kind of get into the whole zen of it. I mean, like things start to flow. You know where everything's at. You know the measurements. It's really nice. It's kind of a cool. I used to work years ago when I was, I don't know, 19, 18. I worked at KD's back when it was like really jamming back then. It was a lot of fun, and kind of was the only cappuccino coffee place in town. Yeah. And I used to dig it when we were busy.
Back when you could smoke in there?
Oh, yeah. It was always full of smoke. Yeah. When some people would leave to go out and take the trash out and smoke, you know. I remember some of those folks, longer smoke breaks. But
come in stumbling.
I never smoked, and I never took a smoke break, and then for some reason I never took the trash out either, and I started to get wise. I was a naive guy. I'm like, why is the cook and this guy going out to take the trash out? And I went out there one night. I was like, oh, now I know why. Now I know why the whole vibe changes. You know, it's kind of funny, but
that's funny.
But yeah, I would get into that zone, man. I used to like go. I'd leave work and go, man, I'm kind of on a high from being really busy and just kind of knowing what everything is.
Oh, I loved working in the mornings at Starbucks.
Really, the morning shift, like the rush hour.
Yeah. We would just be balls to the wall, just crazy.
Which
busy.
One did you work at?
Ryan.
Yeah, okay.
Before they did all the renovation and everything. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
I kind of miss it every once in a while.
I know what you mean. Sometimes I think that I'm like, man, it'd be nice to just go back in time and wait tables just for like a night. Yeah, just to kind of feel that again. You know?
And then I wouldn't do it anymore.
Right. I remember,
customers throwing cappuccinos at you. Passion tea lemonades and things like that. Yeah, we had that kind of stuff happen.
Oh, yeah. The stories, I mean, I've heard about the very particular folk. Mm-hmm.
But when you get it right and you know what they want right whenever they pull up to the window, you are their best friend.
Yeah, they got a guy, they got a gal. It's like, I know it's funny what people will like just feel that way about.
I used to sing to people when they come in the morning when I was on bar. I would, if they were standing there with a grumpy face, I'd be like, "You better smile before I give you your drink because you're not gonna get one. And if you don't smile," and then they'd just be like,
they'd cheer up.
You know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. I would sing all the time.
So you like to make people feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel that when you're teaching?
Yeah,
like, do you just feel like a feeling like, oh, I just made their day kind of?
Yeah, they laugh at me a lot because I'm like dancing or tell really corny jokes or something like that.
Well, I love the projects you post.
Yeah.
I was actually, I sabotaged you before you got here because I was looking at some of your stuff and I was like, that one of you pushing the croissant, I just love that picture. So I was like, I'm interviewing her today. I took a picture of it. You know, I was like, this is cool.
It's just like simple, like, you know, silly assignments that I'm like, oh, hey, look, you can even like Photoshop yourself like to where you're pushing a piece of food. Look, I'm a croissant pusher. And they're just like, you are weird.
But they love it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if I can get a side smile out of them, even if they just think about it later and they smile, then I'm kind of doing my job.
No, I think you're right. I really do. I think there's got to be some joy in it, you know. I mean, because there's the whole miserable artist that is another archetype that
I haven't cut my ear off yet, but I might.
Well, I mean, I've met the miserable artists before, and I'm like, you know, so serious that it's joyless, you know, and that's not a good place to be.
You know, I've come to a point where, because I used to be like the depressed, like I loved minor chords so much, and I still do. I still love minor chords, but you know, I've come to realize that life's so much better when you're smiling and dancing and being happy and fun and making people laugh. And
well, what takes you out of that space? What are some, I mean, are there things that like, and I got to pause it here and just clarify, this show's called Find the Good News, but I always I'm a complainer too, and I have to actually, I wrestle with it.
You're finding it though,
that's right. I have to go there sometimes to go, I think if you pretend like things are not the way they really are, that's a delusion for me anyway. I'd rather go, okay, this sucks.
Right.
But somehow in admitting that it sucks, I can begin to find my way out of the cave, so to speak. But if I don't even know I'm in a cave, I'm just going to keep walking deeper into it. So that's sort of the way I see it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my partner has a lot to do with it.
Really?
Yeah, she's amazing and is constantly just encouraging me, and she's just a good person.
And that helps.
Just watching her and like listening to her and having her by my side. I think that's really like my biggest support of not being back in that like sad spot, I think. So
I get that.
Yeah. It's good to have good people. It is good to have good people.
It's kind of interesting because I talk about anchors a lot, and anchor is one of the logo for the show because of that very thing, that at the top of a hole sometimes there is an anchor,
right,
and there's a rope tied to it, and sometimes it's a person, you know.
Well, majority of the time it's a person for me, you know. My friends from graduate school, I think they understand who I am and kind of just being an artist. And so going to those people, I talk to them. I mean, even they're in New Jersey, I talk to them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, just saying, how are you? What's going on? Tell me what you're working on, you know, things like that. So I think people are the biggest support that you can have to kind of keep yourself out of those sad spots, you know? So yeah, I think people.
Yeah, I think you're right too. I've said this many times, that people are the thing I'm the most afraid of, and the thing that I love the most. And because I've been terrified by some people, I've been hurt by some people, but I've also been just loved and accepted and carried by people too. So I've seen the best and the worst. And I think that's probably everything. You know?
I think like when I was growing up, I had a lot of issues with like friends and relationships, just because I come from a divorced family, and just not really knowing how to act like a real person.
Can I stop you right there? I want to talk about that. I mean, I really do, because it's interesting because I'm divorced. I didn't come from a divorced family, but I did come from a family where there were several separations. And so there were times when it felt like divorce, and a lot of things that just affect you when you're a kid. And I've often wondered, because 2 of my children are from my previous marriage, and I thought I was going to work really hard to have an amicable divorce. But even if you work that hard, there's still the part of that life that they had to live that I didn't have to live, which was the going between houses, and you're at dad's a week, you're at mom's a week.
Or feeling guilty for going to visit one, or those kind of things. So
it affects a kid, and I saw it more so in my daughter. She was a little older when it happened, not much, but some. And I see it, and I go, I don't know. Now, all I can do is help steer, navigate it the best you can, because it's gonna affect them.
Right. I think, but as you grow older, you kind of have to pull yourself out of all the things that you think that you don't have.
Sure.
Because I use it as an excuse for a long time.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
How long did that last? Did you just go, oh, my parents were divorced, they screwed this all up?
I would say like I wasn't raised right, I didn't know the difference or whatever.
I got you.
I had to go other places to get support or whatever. And it was just a crutch for a really long time. And I think, probably within the last maybe 6 or 7 years, it hasn't been that long that I've kind of finally, and I still have moments, ask my partner. I have moments where I'm just like, well, I just can't cope with that for right now. I don't know how to suppress my, cocky attitude sometimes or whatever it is. Yeah.
But you're like aware though.
Oh yeah.
That's
totally,
awesome.
Fully aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to like constantly be on top of the way that I present myself.
It's interesting. I think awareness is so important. It's the beginning of change for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not big on forced change. I just don't think it works. But something for me, and I'm still digging into this one, certain words, and I hate to use the word triggered, but I'm just going to say it triggers something. Yeah. It does. And I'm 44 years old, and I'm like, these things trigger me.
Right.
I got a letter from school, and it said, this meeting is mandatory. Now, that is, I had to ask everybody else in my family, I said, does this letter bother you? Didn't bother anybody but me.
Right.
So I read it again. I go, what's bugging me about this letter? And I zeroed in on the word. It was the word mandatory. Huh. And I was like, okay, so this is a thing with me.
Right.
Because it's triggering something in me.
Right.
That wants to rebel.
Right.
Against this word.
Right.
Against this forced. And because the word mandatory means
you have to be there or else.
Or else. And I was just like, I'm having trouble with this language.
Yeah.
And I think about, so I rewrote it in my head. I was like, we would like you to be at this meeting, and here's why it's important. I wrote just that one sentence. I wrote it just a little bit, just different language. And I went, now, let me read this again. I was like, okay, this doesn't bug me. So what is it about this idea of forced anything?
Right.
And so my wife, she said, oh, that's definitely you. She said, like, if somebody says, I need an answer right now, then your answer is usually, well, then the answer is no.
Yeah.
And it's some kind of weird thing. And I go, okay, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Because it comes from somewhere. I just don't exactly know where. Isn't that interesting?
You got to dig into that.
Yeah. But the awareness of a thing like that, now I can at least go, I've said it before to other people. I say, I see you over there thing. Now I got you.
Right.
I'm on your trail.
Yeah.
I don't know how to stop you yet, but I do know you're there. Yeah. And so I'm going to get you.
Do some journaling.
Yeah, I'm going to get
mind mapping. Get some mind mapping.
For real. Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About the mind maps.
Me too, man. I like digging down those holes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of almost exciting.
I find it exciting. And I do it with my kids at school too. I'm like,
teach them to like,
yeah, let's map it out. Let's figure out what
far
the
can we go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they look at me like I'm crazy until we get to it. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I got it now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, does it make sense? And they're like, not really, but kinda. I'm like,
yeah.
We're good. we're on to something at least, you know? So just kind of planting a seed, I guess.
Right on.
Sense. But yeah, you gotta find out what's at the core of that.
Yeah, and then what you said, something super important is, I mean, it's important to, I think, identify like why maybe you do have an issue with something, but not having a crutch and going, oh, well, that's this person's fault and I'm just screwed up now.
Yeah.
And just saying, oh, well, it's just the way I am.
I think there comes a point when you can't like just make an excuse about it. You gotta man up and like own it, you know?
Yeah.
You can change.
You can change.
You can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I try to preach that to the kids too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think impermanence and change are scary things, but I think they're beautiful too, because that's how you learn things. It's how you break through and become something new and do new things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all growing.
So I got to ask you about, you said church, and then I want to ask you about your lecture series.
Okay.
Because I'd love to hear you talk about this. Because I've only read a little bit of what you'd sent me some links, but is this the correct name? Opening a dialogue for queer Catholicism through visual art.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that related to? That was the title. And that's a lecture and art that went with the lecture? Or
well, it was kind of unpacking like contemporary artists who have worked within queer and Catholic paradigms.
Now, why did you choose that?
Well, because I'm queer. I'm gay. And I am Catholic. I still identify as both.
Do you go to a Catholic church?
Yes.
You do? Yes. Where do you go?
We go to the cathedral.
Okay.
Yeah.
You posted a picture the other day of the renovations, I guess, on the interior.
Did I? Oh, yeah. It was something somebody else had posted, I think.
Okay. So you go to the cathedral, you're Catholic.
Yeah.
And you're gay.
Yes.
And so
I was unpacking kind of queer Catholic artist and then connecting it to my artwork and how I am kind of living out my paradigm.
Yeah.
So
I think that is important.
Yeah.
For me, it's important too, because I'm also Catholic, and I don't attend Mass anymore.
Okay.
Because my son is gay.
Yeah.
And the only way I can say it is that it is very few and far between that gay is not prayed against. Prayer used as a weapon.
Right.
And I, for where I was attending and the many people that I was encountering in prayer circles and prayer groups and events, it came up constantly. And I couldn't find a way to navigate it that was healthy for my teenage son.
Right.
Without him, words like disordered and
you don't want him to
I'm
be
like,
hurt.
I don't look at my child as, I don't look and go, oh, well, I love you, but you're disordered.
Right.
That language, just all of that.
Intrinsically disordered.
Sure.
That's what it is. I mean, that's how it's defined.
So I was like, I don't know that I have the strength to change it from the inside.
You don't. I mean, the thing is, I'm not going to sit here and preach like I don't have any struggles with it, because I do.
Yeah.
I have struggles with it every single day. And does it help that I have somebody else living it out right next to me?
Yeah, that's gotta help. Sure.
I mean, how blessed am I to have a partner who believes the same things that I do?
Two way. Yeah, the strength. Y'all gotta support each other,
but also, attending mass and just being us. It's not like we're like sitting next to each other holding hands or like with arms around.
Well, you're not making a statement out of it or trying to make. You're just being yourself.
Our statement is attending mass and sitting next to one another.
Yeah, I got you.
And if that gives strength to somebody that is struggling, to see, because I've seen other queer people in mass with a partner. Before, not here, but in New Jersey and in Austin. But the strength that it made me feel, how empowered it made me feel to say, hey, you know what? I was baptized in this church. I was confirmed. I belong here just as much as everybody else.
Right.
I still am the same person that I was.
Right. When you were
baptized.
Then. That's right.
There was this moment when I was living in New Jersey, and I remember just feeling so empowered because we attended mass together. And, I have no idea if these people knew that we were together.
Right. There's no way.
I have no idea.
Right.
I have no idea what their assumptions were of us attending mass together. But they asked us to present the gifts. And
really?
That moment, I was just like taken back. And, Amanda kind of looked at me and I looked at her and we were just like, wow. Like, I don't know what they thought. But maybe they thought we were sisters or whatever they thought.
Whatever, but you were still asked.
But that idea of being chosen, to prepare and present the gifts, kind of really enforce that sense of belong.
Yeah, that's so powerful and it's so beautiful. Honestly, I guess perhaps and I've had several discussions with people outside of our area. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just a Southwest Louisiana sentiment. I'm just not sure what it is. But
it is weird because living in other places, it's people look at me and they're like, okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, why can't you be both, But I know people, I'm friends with people from a lot of different cultures, a lot of different religions. And
me too, see?
So
all right.
For them, it's just another thing.
Right.
But for us, being in a place that it's so condensed and so, I think almost everybody's Catholic here. I feel like majority of the religion is Catholic.
Sure.
So it's scary sometimes, because people talk to me lovingly in relationship, like small conversation relationships. Right. Are they going to promote and be, stand by me
when it's not? See, that's kind of why, if I can share really with you what my experience.
Yeah, of course.
I was called. I confirmed later in life, just a couple of years ago, and it was through a series of honestly very powerful experiences of coming to the church. It wasn't just a intellectual experience. It was, I would say, it was experiential.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like someone said, "Hey, you should read this and convince yourself." I'd already kind of done that years before, but this was like some occurrences that just said, "Okay, this is quivering my heart."
Right.
Being drawn from outside the door in, and and so in the last couple of years, I started a prayer event called Mercy Mornings. And so it was sort of, for what I sort of discovered, there were a lot of disenfranchised people who had sort of were sitting on the outside of the doors of the church,
right,
because they were either divorced, and not divorced just as a frivolous thing. I mean, like maybe being an abusive marriage or whatever it may be, all kinds of kaleidoscope of reasons. And so all these people weren't attending Mass, and so by not attending Mass, they then weren't doing any of the other practices as well. And then slowly you get to draw away from that pond, and
it's like, I don't need to go to church on Sunday,
then you're just not close. You're and some people, I'm not saying everybody, but I was just sensing that. Right. A lot of hurting people. Right.
Been there.
And I could see it. I mean, tears and tears and pain. So this event was sort of, that was what I guess what Felix was called to do.
Yeah.
Over time, it became, and I hate to say this, I don't even know the way to say it, it became more Catholic, like just another thing to do. Right. And just another, and again, I hate saying it this way, just another rosary. Right. And so when it became that, it was, that it begins to invite in the...
it's like a relationship, you do the wake up, you do your job, and then you come home and you
get in the routine. It's like, well, we're gonna pray, pray for anybody considering abortion, pray against, pray for people that are in same-sex marriages, that they'll realize. And I just started feeling like, literally, I mean, almost like stabs to my spirit, like when I started hearing that stuff, and I said, this is not what this was for, these people. And then what would happen is when it would sort of disperse, there were always a group of folks, like different people each time. Maybe somebody come for the first time, they would hang back and say, my son's gay, and he's out of the church, and my husband doesn't want him at home, or my sister is gay, and she was raised in the church, and now it was just a lot of pain stories. And then I get a little bit tongue-tied because I get a little bit emotional about it, because I was staying behind and hearing a lot of pain, a lot of hurting. And so we would just pray together, and as we would pray, I just got this sense of there's a table set for these people. Right. They feel like they're not invited to the table. Right. And I just couldn't reconcile it. I was like, this just isn't what this isn't what I was drawn to his heart for. Right. To shut doors. I feel like these wounds are open. They're not closed. Right. So I don't know. It was all of that. And then having a son who was one of the most loving, gentle, beautiful people I've ever met, and going home after that and then he would go to school and say, I heard this today, and this person told me this today, and it's the same people I'm going to practice with, and it was just very painful. And I finally just, I couldn't reconcile it. I couldn't, and I still don't know now what I'm even doing anymore with that. Honestly, I'm in a weird nebulous kind of place.
I mean, it's a struggle. Sure. I was highly, highly, highly involved in church right down the road, I staffed retreats, I was singing in the choir, I did all of it, taught catechism. And to have people kind of tell you that they don't agree with you and your lifestyle, that word,
lifestyle,
I'm like, well, it's just life for me, it's not a lifestyle. It's literally
just a life you're living.
I love this person, and you don't agree with that, so you're going to tell me that I'm not going to go to heaven because I love somebody. Yeah. So, it hurts because I've had relationships with people that I just can't talk to anymore. Yeah. Because every time that I speak to them or speak to them about... my own grandfather won't speak to me. Really? Because of... Well, he'll speak to me, but if I mention anything about my partner, then he'll be like, I gotta.
It's like I understand. I understand,
So just... I'm like, you don't even know her. Like, you have no idea. And why would you be upset with someone that's so happy? Like, I'm living my best life right now. Yeah. Literally. Yeah. Like, we go to Mass... we're good people. But yet we're bad. You're telling me that we're bad, you know? It's a really strange world to live in.
I can only imagine. I'm listening to you, and it's strange because I honestly know what you mean. I really do. Like I had this experience one time at a morning mass I was at, and I closed it. At the morning masses, a lot of times the congregation will actually pray, and they'll open it up to where even if there's 10 or 12 people in there, they'll say, I'll pray for my family or this specific person. You don't typically do that at a Sunday mass where everybody's there.
Totally.
And so I started going to those, and I would feel these prayers rise up, and I just want to pour, you feel it. You just want to, it rises up in you to actually speak to the Creator and say, I want to pray for all the people who are suffering because of these types of issues.
And the thing,
And I would begin to feel that rise up to say, and then I would hear from across, we want to pray for all those people that are, they're living in same-sex relationships, and we pray to the Lord, and then everybody says, Lord, hear our prayers.
Right.
And I would just go, okay, I'm not sure how.
I can't say it.
I would go, if I say this, then even though I'm speaking to the Creator, I don't know. It was those kind of experiences for me began to feel like I was being just not genuine.
Right.
I was like, well, I speak to the Creator this way when I'm alone, but if I speak this way publicly, how many relationships? I'm not going to be in a church community anymore. I might be in the body of Christ, but I'm
not as involved as I would love to be, because I know that that's going to come up at some point. That's kind of a big deal. And I mean, maybe it's the way that I look, or people assume things right off the gamut. I mean, me walking around in Sulphur or Lake Charles, I do get looked at. I do get called sir.
Really?
Which is weird to me, because
interesting.
I'm very feminine.
Yeah, that surprises me, actually.
But it's interesting because Catholicism is so beautiful, because it is so accepting and loving and one, right? I can walk in. I've been to Rome. I've been to all around the world, and I walk into a Catholic church and I feel at home.
Yes.
There's only been one time where I haven't felt at home. And it was in my home.
In your home.
Where right after same-sex marriage got passed. I literally have never walked out during a homily except for one time. Because it was just hate. It was hate. It was preaching hate.
Yeah.
And that's not what the church is about. No. And so I tend to not be a confrontational person, because I just don't like to push other people to believe one thing, or lean one way or the other. So my way is just to kind of back off.
I got you.
So those relationships kind of dissolve. Or I just surround myself with people that want good. Want people to live their lives.
Well, you can be healthy and whole and good and do God's work too. I mean, and help advance the kingdom. And I think maybe the definition of what that means is very different to different people. What does it mean? And I'll tell you something like that I struggled with for many years, and I've gotten over it. And especially now that I'm sort of in that nebulous territory again, I'm much more vocal about it. Is that I practice Buddhism as a philosophy and as a teaching, probably more than I would say most of my Christian teachings. I mean, as a belief and as a faith.
that doesn't make you a bad person.
No,
or anything.
There are people that just assume
think
if it's
that
not.
Is.
And I've confronted that and had to face that many times. If I'm being honest, and I've lost relationships over it, which for me, I begin to feel a more beautiful version of myself when I rest in both of those homes. When I'm at home,
because you're being your true self. You're accepting both sides.
Just
like me, gay and Catholic.
And you just have to go, this is who I am. This is what I've become.
I'm going to still live out both of those truths in my life, regardless of what anybody else says, because it's my life, and the only thing that really matters is you and your relationship with God, or, you know, if you believe in God, you know,
right,
and that's the thing. Like, you know, some people don't, and I've had to confront people when I was super involved in the church, you know, friends coming up to me like, Meagan, I don't believe in anything. Do you think I'm going to hell still? You
because
know?
You don't believe, are you? Yeah.
Or they just can't, they don't understand, or they can't believe right now, or whatever it is.
Sure.
You know, and I can't tell somebody that they're going to hell.
Well, no, we can't say that to anybody.
You know, I
Who
could
knows?
never. But there are people that do that.
No, sure,
you know?
right.
I mean, there's people that said that to me, you know. So.
I can't busy myself with that because, and it's not just to try to be this lovey-dovey, like,
right.
you know, fake, false peace. I don't believe in false peace. Right. And I think I will say this, and it's probably just because of who I am. Mm-hmm. I do find it very hard to understand how someone can't at least consider mm-hmm. that there is something.
Right.
Beyond.
I do too.
Yeah, that really, to me, I think you almost have to force yourself to see chaos.
Yeah.
Because I do hear a lot of that, like, well, there's chaos. And for me, at a very young age, it was even before I began to know Jesus or anything about Jesus, I just had this sense that there was something making everything tick. And it didn't tick on its own, just sort of chaotically.
It's too much for me to comprehend. Like, my brain can't. I don't know. I just can't comprehend that kind of stuff. You know,
it's heavy. Yeah, but it's beautiful. And I saw order. I didn't see chaos. And when I saw order, I don't even remember what it was, but there was something I was looking at when I was a kid, and I thought, well, that sort of works like this. Mm-hmm. And then we made this, and we're people with intelligence. Right. But it took intelligence to do that. That doesn't happen without intelligence, so surely that can't happen without. I don't know. It was just sort of the math that the problem I put together in my own head, and it was very easy.
Yeah, it was your mind map.
Yeah, so I never had a problem with like that part, and so I guess eventually drawing a line to the idea that there was potentially a rhythm to history, mm-hmm, you know, mm-hmm. and that you begin to see, especially patterns with Catholicism, I thought was beautiful because it's very good at teaching those things. And like we see this is like this. And if you follow the trail, you kind of ultimately run into Jesus. Exactly. And I'm like, you know, that makes a lot of sense to me. And then I get to Jesus and I read the way he spoke and I fall in love. Right. And I'm like, oh, this is like the voice in my heart. Exactly. Okay, this begins to all make a really sense to me. I don't know. Fell in love with that. It's when you run into people again, you get the conflict. You get the conflict, and I'm like, so the voice of people doesn't always sound like this, right? You know, it's complicated. It gets complicated. I mean, we walked around. I actually opened the door by asking you about your dialogue, opening the dialogue for Catholicism through visual art. Yeah. Well, so in doing that's kind of it. That's like navigating that terrain, you know. So did you find that doing that presentation that you had some conversations where it opened some doors, and that did it actually enlighten some folks and give them a new perspective? It was interesting, you know, because this was kind of like my thesis work. So it was what I was doing for when I was in graduate school, and it's kind of trickled and kind of evolved and turned into paintings again, because I was doing a little bit of sculpture and installation and video. Yeah, I looked at some of that stuff. Yeah. You know, I was scared to do it in my hometown. Yeah. You know, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to get any pushback or people with picket, you know. There was a gentleman that came in, and I noticed him as he walked into the room. It was a small room, like an office table. Yeah, a little intimate. Yeah. Well, it had like a meeting table in it. Okay, that's pretty intimate. Yeah, and he came in and he had a book in his hand, and I still to this day do not know what the book was, but I knew that there was a bishop on the front. And he had a crucifix on. Sure. And so I noticed him, and I was like, am started I ready to feel for this? Like I'm somebody's like gunned up is what it feels like I'm ready to get you. Because I've always had this like, if I make something, I'm scared it's going to be seen as sacrilegious, you know? Yeah, like heretical or something. Yeah. But I was told by the same professor that I was talking about in the beginning, Julie Heffernan in graduate school, you know, Meagan, if you make something from your heart, it can't be sacrilegious, you know? So
there was that fear, but I still kind of felt comforted with, I'm speaking my truth and I'm going to be fine. Everything's fine. And the guy got up once during the lecture, went out, and then came back in. And then at the end, he wasn't in the room, but as I was leaving, he was outside on his knees praying. So I don't really know what he was praying about. Maybe he had a change of heart. Maybe he didn't want to say anything. I'm not really sure. But that was kind of the only experience that I had. Everything else was really good feedback. People saying that, you know, we need these kind of conversations to kind of occur in this place. But, you know, I feel like when I was living in New Jersey and in Austin, it was just, yeah, you can be these things. So it wasn't very immediate. Like, it wasn't necessary for me to kind of push or have these conversations with people as much as it is here. Yeah. You know, so maybe I'm like a disciple and trying to, you know, getting people to open their hearts, and
that's a good
just
thing.
Being present, you know, like being present.
I'm impressed that you do it, honestly. I really am. I mean, because, and I don't want to say I can't, because I take...
you do it for, you know, that's where I go.
Yeah.
For what I need.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I get it. I actually miss communion. I mean, I weep about it, honestly. And there's one thing that just keeps coming up for me, that, and it's almost like a voice inside, and I've wrote it down a few times, and it's like, but you're not alone. There's other people out there. I mean, like, basically, you can come to the table.
Right.
You know, the invitation's there, but it's almost like an understanding voice that's like, I understand, because there's a lot of other people out there too that don't feel welcome at the table.
Yeah.
There's always spiritual communion. Right. You know, and those people still need a voice out there in the wilderness. Right. To say, hey, we can still pray together and have spiritual communion, even if you don't fully feel welcome. Because not everybody's just going to walk right through the front doors of the church.
I punished myself for a long time. I didn't go to communion.
You punished yourself, like, you know, withheld yourself from communion.
Yeah, for probably, I would say probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Did you do that because you felt like you were...
Not because of me, but because I felt like other people were going to look at me. Yeah. You know?
No, I get it.
But when I was doing my thesis work, I interviewed a Roman Catholic nun, Sister Janine Gramick, and she has been mentoring and aiding in, like, counseling LGBT Catholics since the 70s. Yeah. And so I did an interview with her, and she's like, don't punish yourself. Don't make yourself feel like you're not worthy to receive. That's where you go for your strength. You know? And so I started receiving again after that. Yeah. And maybe that's not the right thing, you know, but that's what I felt was what I needed.
Well, look, I'll tell you, I mean, I've outside of my wife, nobody else really knows this. This conversation, it's really crazy. The fear. There are people I know who will listen to this, and I know they don't know a lot of what I'm saying. Right. And I know it will change.
Well, that's brave of you.
The relationships.
That's really brave.
But here's something that really, one of the things that drew me to the Catholic faith and practice was going to small masses. And I didn't really know at the time the full scope of the rules. Okay. Right. So when I was in my 20s, I have an experience, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but it was something outside of any faith, but it was Christ. I mean, it drew me to his heart. It's the only way I can explain it in short. And so I was drawn to the Mass, but I wasn't drawn to the Mass in a way where I was like, hey, tell me how I can go receive communion. I just went and saw and heard the words and believed. Right. I was like, oh, I saw what was happening. I felt a presence in that church. I mean, I remember walking into a cathedral, no one being there, and going, that red candle means something. I feel he's in here. And so I was drawn to communion. And so I would go. And I'd watched and I learned. I saw what everyone did. And so for years, when I would feel like I was lost, I knew there was something different about the Catholic Mass. And I would go and I would receive communion. Now, you tell that to somebody, and you know as well as I do what that means.
Right.
To somebody who's in the church, who's followed it, whose kids have went to CCD their whole life, and they've done confirmation and all of that. And so I got to a place where, as I started getting older, and I mean studying religion and practicing Buddhism, my life, figuring out my path here, but I know that needs to be in it.
Right.
Then as I start digging, I'm like, oh, so I shouldn't have been doing that, but I still to this day can't reconcile. I'm just telling you, I can't reconcile that in my mind that there's anything wrong when Christ draws you in. He doesn't say, go. And here's the catechism. He didn't hand me the catechism. Right. He didn't say, go learn this catechism, do all this. Before you do all this. He wanted to, and I know that sounds, there's people who say that just sounds so arrogant, but I was falling in love with that and him, and there wasn't a catechism involved in that process. It was something that just happened.
Well, it's overwhelming, the sights, the sounds, the smells that occur during the Mass, and it's just very, all the senses are just stimulated and
overwhelmed with emotions and love and just so much. I mean, I could just go on and on about things that have happened, and I still, now what's happened is I can't reconcile that. I can't find that place because I still feel drawn to, still feel that wonder and that love and that desire, but I can't reconcile that I get to have this because eventually I did. I finally said, okay, if I want to do this, I want to be able to walk through the doors of the church and shake someone's hand and say, yes, I'm in here, and yes, I did the stuff. I didn't want to hide in the shadows anymore and do that. And so I go and I do confirmation, and I go through the process, and then I finally do. And when I get in there and I get to that point, I begin to experience something totally different than what was happening when I wasn't. It was the strangest thing. I was like, so how is this way? How is it that the only time I don't know, maybe so I wanted to see Christ in the hearts and actions of the people around me, in their words and in their deeds, and more than I was. And that's not fair, because I can't see what's going on with people, but that's just what I began to feel. More rejection and
it's
less
weird,
love. It was the strangest thing, and I was like, I can't make
Catholic
sense out of this
thing that's kind of going on too. Like, you just feel guilty for things that you do.
It was strange. It's strange. And so I don't know. And now, I've come to find out now, as I suspected, when I read people like Thomas Merton and, other great philosophers and Catholic thinkers, I'm like, I'm not the only person who's ever felt this way. I'm not the only one who's ever struggled with this. We've all been through it in so many different ways, So I don't know. Anyway, I applaud you sticking with it and going through all of that and then going it back in, because I'm still trying to figure that out.
I'm telling you, it was my partner. We should have had her in here too. She's a lot stronger than me.
Wow. that is a blessed thing, though.
Yeah, it really totally is. Completely. I'm very blessed that I have somebody like her. Yeah. So, she's amazing.
How big of a driver is that in the way you frame your worldview, your faith? Everything? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Because,
the artwork is about kind of navigating through that kind of life and dealing with relationships with other people, or dealing with people who are dealing with the same thing, or don't have faith, or, whatever it is. So... yeah, it's probably the biggest. Yeah.
I just find it amazing.
It just comes out, I feel like I have to, like, a lot of my inspiration for paintings and things come to me while I'm sitting in Mass. Yeah. So in that sense, I'm like, how can it be wrong if it's coming while I'm sitting in the presence, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I have to go home. I don't know. I don't bring my sketchbooks to mass, but I have this idea, and I'll be like, Amanda, I have to get home because I have to go sketch. I have to get this idea out. I have an idea for a painting. I have an idea for 2 new paintings, you know, like, just by sitting and listening and receiving. So...
Yeah, I mean, I've got this feeling, and I mean, I guess it comes from my own experiences, that Christ arrives outside of the boundaries, anywhere and everywhere, and that's why I think we get inspired with things that we go, what is this?
Right.
It's something, a lot of times it's something to do.
Yeah.
And you go, this seems out of alignment with maybe what everybody's used to.
Yeah.
So why? But how is it connected? And you find out, there's some, that, I guess that goes back to that Mercy Mornings thing. It's like I've found so many people hurting, and I tend to have eyes for people who are hurting, you know. And I was like, man, maybe this is why. Somebody just needs to know that Jesus loves them still, you know, and that they're still seen.
Exactly.
You know, and cared for.
Right.
Because we can feel alone out there.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know. That kind of gets back to divorce and like what you were talking about. I mean, as a young person, I went through like a dark night of the soul, and that's kind of where I encountered that first real strong experience. And it came from being in a place where I didn't feel comfortable. I was going through something very dark and heavy at a young age for me, as a young man, and I didn't feel safe talking to my father about it. Right. I love my mother. I didn't feel safe talking to her about it. And I was going through all this alone. They had no idea. Nobody, none of my friends.
Right. Yeah,
it's strange.
That's complicated because, you know, growing up, whenever that was occurring, I ran to the church for my comfort. And, you know, I had all these strong motherly figures around that kind of mothered me while my mother wasn't present. But still, there was a disconnect because my friends had, you know, both their mom and their dad, and I still felt like I couldn't talk to them, so I would lash out in anger or whatever kind of an emotion that was just right off the drop of the hat, you know, and just lose it. So the church really was a place where I could go and just kind of find that peace at that time.
Comfort.
Yeah,
and stability.
So I felt I was alone, but I had people around me at least that kind of kept me on my toes. Yeah. And were trying to teach me how to be a young woman. When really I was dealing with all this other stuff where, you know, I didn't understand who I was still at that time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how does that, I'm very interested in that. I mean, I kind of keep you here all night, but my son has went through a lot of that too. You know, that, and I hate to use words like different, but I mean, when he was even as a young boy, little, I was like, something's just, at that time, I was like, he's just not like other little boys. He's not interested in the same thing as other little boys. Yeah.
I mean, I think that has a little bit of stuff to do with it, but I mean, there's this musical called Fun Home.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God. It's
Fun Home? Okay.
Yeah, you have to watch it, or you have to go see it in New York if it's back on Broadway. But there's this little girl who is struggling with her identity. Yeah. And she's singing this love song about a UPS or someone dressed like a lady that's a UPS driver or whatever. And she's singing a love song about her ring of keys on her. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't know why, but I know you, like, and, you know, saying you're me, I'm you, right? Yeah. So, like, I think that for me, I just, like, saw it. I was just, like, sobbing, like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember moments of seeing people and I'm just like, I don't know if I like them or if I want to be them or if that's who I am, you know, so just trying to like identify, you know, and some people want to blame it on my mother leaving or, you know, which is hogwash. Like that is ridiculous.
If this hadn't happened.
Yeah. Then, if your mother would have been around, you would have been straight.
I can tell you that from my son. That has
because
I've
dated men, you know, and I'm almost at the point where I believe it doesn't matter if it's male or female. You're gonna and what does orientation matter? Because when you fall in love with somebody, that's who you're gonna fall in love with. You know, what is it? orientation doesn't matter until you find that person.
Sure.
Right? So I get kind of...
Well, love is interesting because I think we can really sort of, and it might just be the culture we live in, but it's like love gets sort of, it gets narrowed.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you start talking about the different types of love there are and the elements of it, and you get into some territory where you're like, well, it's broken out of bounds of what we think we're.
But then being in a relationship, you realize, you know, it's work, you know, so I feel empathy for like my parents, and so that's when that acceptance kind of comes in, and you're like, oh well, I get it, like I get it now, and I accept it, because there were times at the beginning where I was just like, I can't do this with my partner, you know, but we realized that it is it's work. You have to accept it, and we've both made that commitment to one another that neither one of us are going to give up, you know. So yeah, I just always wondered about that. I mean, as far as the formation of any, I mean, I think about my own life. When did one of my good friends... When did you choose to be straight?
My good friend, a good friend of mine, I love the guy, we don't talk enough, but he said that one time to somebody else. He said, so let me ask you a question. When did you decide that you liked women? He was talking to a man, and he was like, well, I didn't decide it. And he goes, oh, okay, you don't remember when then. So, you know, I was like, oh, that's a very good way to put that, and it does open up that whole discussion.
Well, I think it matters for people that are outside of the norm, you know, or what society deems norm. So for me, it was a big thing because I wasn't like my friends, right? So for me, I kind of remember like moments of like acceptance of myself, and then finally when I realized, and I was just like, okay, I guess I am. You know? Took my dad and I went to dinner, and I was talking about my best friend Taylor, and Taylor is also gay, and he was like, man, too bad, you know, you and Taylor can't be together. And I was like, he's like, too bad Taylor's gay. And I was like, well, what if I told you that I was? It just kind of came out,
like,
you know, I was just like,
kinda...
what if I told you about that I was? Because I'm just like, okay, whatever. And he's like, well, I wouldn't be surprised, you know. I was like, well, I am. And he's like, well, that makes sense.
And that's how
I mean, he's been studying everything that I could imagine or want from a parent, you know.
That's awesome. Not everybody gets that.
Even my grandmother, who, you know, is older and was kind of set in her ways, she now thinks that Amanda's the best thing that could ever happen to me, you know. So having that support is the biggest thing, you know.
Well, you know, that's how it's been with my son. I remember when he told me, and it's the way he told me. He was very young. He just said, I think he wanted to say it. I think he wanted to just get it off his chest. And the way he came to me, he said, I think this. And I said, okay. I said, well, he was still very young. And I said, look, here, and this is what I told him. I still to this day don't know if it was the right thing or the wrong thing. But what I told him was, I said, well, that's fine. If that is the case, I'm okay with that. I said, but I will say this, don't worry about it.
Right.
Don't worry about deciding whether that's an identity that you want. Just be yourself. If that identity, I guess for me it's always been the thing, why do we have to have the identity of anything? You know, why? And he's like, why? And I think I might have planted that in him. He's like, so why does it matter? Why do I have to be call myself, why do I have to use the term or gay? Why do I have to even have that?
Right.
You know?
I identify myself as that, and Amanda doesn't. So she does not identify as gay. She says, I love you. So, you know, for her, it's that, you know, she just doesn't
kind of
feel the need
it's like I don't have to have an identity with it.
For me, it's, I guess it's different maybe because I'm an artist and I'm just, you know, who I am. But I kind of, I like being able to identify. But that's me, you know, it's not for everybody.
Struggles that he faces, and I wonder, I mean, if everybody faces this, I don't know, it's all different, but some of the things that we've talked about, and I go, man, that's got to be a really tough situation, is a lot of guys, and maybe it's just the stigma at their age, and people haven't matured yet. A lot of guys, he tells me that all the time. He said, there's guys that I go, man, we could be good friends. I'd like to hang out with them and go do stuff with them. Or because he would say, when he'd hear me talk about things I did in high school, and he would say, man, I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't have buddies like that, guy friends. And I'm like, that's sad. And he said, well, it's because, and he told me that it's because they're afraid if they go to the movies with me, or if we go hang out and go play ball or anything, that someone's going to go, oh, you're gay.
Right.
And he said, why has that got to be a bad thing? And he said, that's just what he hopes changes for him.
The atmosphere of kids today is kind of interesting, and I see it every day on a first-hand basis.
Yeah, right. So I wonder about that.
I don't allow the kids to call each other gay in a derogatory way in my classroom. And
Good,
they know if they say it, I give them that mom look, and they're like, "I'm sorry, Miss Megan. I'm sorry, Miss. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
right. Don't say it like, that's gay.
I'm like, I've had to pull people aside, and I'm like, if somebody is hurting, and if somebody is struggling with that identity, and you call them that, or you call somebody else that in a derogatory way, it's not cool. You're hurting somebody.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, if you called me that, I'm not going to take offense, whatever. You can call me whatever you want, but I'm a lot stronger in my identity than somebody who that's struggling. That's struggling. So they have words that they can't use in my classroom. Yeah,
well, that's a good thing. It's good to teach people that, because somebody posted a great article the other day, a young man had wrote, and I was very impressed by it. I was like, wow, first of all, I couldn't believe they posted it, because I honestly probably judged that person or pegged them wrong, because I was like, wow, they're sharing this, and this is very open-minded and healing type of article. But one of the struggles this young man faced was, as he got older, was realizing that all the words like gay, queer, those were all being used by people as a jab to describe something as negative and bad. And as he began to realize that he was gay and he was queer, that the people he cared about and hung around with, that was a dirty word to them. Right. And that was very hurtful. It hurt him actually a lot. Yeah. He carried that pain around for a long time.
It's interesting. But I do notice that kids are a lot more secure, or they appear to be a lot more secure with who they are today, especially in other places. When I was living in Austin, kids were just so living their life, and not worrying about what other people thought. Yeah. Which is kind of refreshing.
I think so too.
And it's somewhat occurring in the atmosphere over here. But I think they still kind of fear that judgment from others, for sure.
And I think you're right. I guess I can only base it on what I experience at home. I know high school's been easier than junior high. Right. Junior high was a meat grinder. Yeah. Even elementary school wasn't too great, having a child that was going through that. Yeah. And now it's a lot better. Yeah. But now he faces just different relationship challenges now, like the one I mentioned. Yeah. Because, what happens to a young person who doesn't build critical, crucial friendships that are more diverse? He's desiring more diverse relationships, and he's kind of forced, unfortunately, because of his identity, to have only these select few. Yeah. And so he's not getting the full buffet, I guess, of experience. Yeah. What's it like to have a guy friend and to go hang out and just do things that are it's I guess what I think he always talks about is that there's this impression that if you're a gay man or gay boy, that you're feminine. Right. And he's not. He's still a boy. Yeah. He's like, I still like guys. Right. I'm still like a boy. Right. So people tend to treat you differently, like you're not a boy.
Exactly. It's such a big stigma, and even for women,
Yeah, right,
gay women, it's like, oh,
you don't you're not female or feminine or something.
And granted, I haven't worn a dress in I don't know how long, but right. It would be awkward to see me in a dress. But it's interesting.
Yeah, just interesting. Yeah, it is. It changes. I'm sure it's changing him, making him into a different person. So.
I think back on my high school experience, and I didn't really know who I was back then, so it was kind of I was figuring myself out. But I don't tell the kids anything but they all think I'm Ellen DeGeneres, you know, because that's the only
right,
the only gay white woman that they can.
You're like, yeah,
you're Ellen, Miss Meagan, you're Ellen, you know. But
that's pretty funny, actually.
I mean, I do dance, and I'm kind of goofy, but I think about like if I were to have had a person like me teaching myself. You know, and being, even if I don't say a word, you know, seeing someone being successful, that is like me, you know. So I think even though I don't feel like every day is like a good day, you know, at least I'm there for somebody that, you know, might be struggling.
No, it's true.
You know?
I think having role models, I had a teacher like that. He was actually murdered my senior year in high school.
Oh.
He doesn't even, I mean, maybe now he knows, but he was a very, I would say, godly man. I mean, he was very gentle but firm. And I don't know, he never really was preachy, you know, but I could tell.
Right.
And then when I went to his funeral, that's when I realized, he really was a very spiritual man.
Yeah.
And he really inspired me. His way, the way he was, and the way he was. I don't know. I felt like he had discernment. That would be the word. I was just like he always, when someone would challenge him or push him, there was always a pause.
He's thinking.
He was. I loved that about him, and he may say something that was hard to hear.
Yeah.
But it was never felt like there was malice. It always felt like just a good, clean.
God, doesn't everybody need that?
Oh man, and to this day I think about him, and I mean, I just go, you know, I wish I could have told him, you know, that, hey, you really,
he knows,
you know, planted that little piece.
Yeah.
You know, I think about him a lot.
Yeah.
You actually, I wrote this down because I wanted to talk about it just quickly. You posted something that I just thought, man, this is what every teacher wants to hear. It's one of your students, it was just today, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know who, you don't have to say who, but I mean, what the student wrote was, I had to rethink things, my future, and what I want, and I started writing in your class, thinking about my actions. Is that what students said to you?
I got goosies.
That's
today. Yeah.
Today
was a good day. Yeah. And my friend Tommy, he was in the hall, and he was like, as I was on break, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, posting something. He's like, let me see. So he like looks, and he's like, all right, like high five. He's like, that's what it's about. And I was like, this kid, I just, you know, had to write him up a couple times and just always on him to get on task. And I'm like, pulling them off to the side, giving them pep talks. I'm like, you know, you can do this. Like, I know you can do this. And that's what my job is most days, is just, I'm a motivator. Like, I'm redirecting and getting kids to accomplish things. And also putting it in real world perspective for them.
Sure.
You know? Like, if you have a job, you can't just go and sit there and do nothing if you want a paycheck, you know, you got to do stuff. But yeah, I bumped heads with this kid a couple times, and just really snaps off at me every once in a while. And I've noticed in the past week that he moved himself away from certain kids. So he switched his seat without
influence.
me I've tried to move him, but he never wanted to listen to me.
Yeah.
But he, in the past week, moved himself to another table. And so they're doing like artist research right now. So they're trying to find artists that they're inspired by. It's very open-ended, letting them kind of do their own filling out, find an artist. But I think he's kind of got it now.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. They do a lot of journaling in my class. So like,
really?
for like a bell ringer.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have them come in or do a free write or a free draw on Fridays, just to kind of break up the, hey, regurgitate this information back to me. You know? But yeah, I like to let them do a lot of soul searching and expressing themselves. Good. You know, I don't like to force them to, you know, do something that is so. I don't know. They say my class is rigorous, but
I don't know. I mean, if you're teaching that to children, I mean, what a blessing that is, and to be able to help them understand that they can look inside themselves and soul search at a young age. I mean, not everybody's doing that.
Well, I mean, I think it's my own journey, because I was very I wasn't good at a lot of things. I was good at art,
Yeah.
And so for them, I'm trying to find what's at that center for them. What are you good at? What are you inspired by? If it means that a kid's going to make art about football the entire year, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So just finding what they care about,
That's beautiful.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But it is beautiful, especially whenever you have moments like that.
Oh yeah, that I read that and I thought, wow, that's, no matter what you do, that to me is
that's winning.
That's the moment where you go, okay, this is why I'm doing this.
That's why I'm not slinging drinks at Starbucks.
Right. Yeah. That'll wear that nostalgia off really fast. Really. So we have this thing on our show, I don't know if you've listened to it at all, but we have this fish bowl.
Okay.
And we call this Fishing for Goodies.
Fishing for Goodies.
And so this is full of questions.
Oh, goodness.
There are questions that other guests have added. There's some that I've added. People who listen to the show email questions.
Okay.
And they're not really geared toward any one person. They're just generalized idea things, to stimulate talks. So you get to draw three. Three.
Oh, my goodness.
And you don't have to answer all three. You can just say, hey, look, this is just, I don't have an answer for this. And we've done that before. But we'll just draw three.
Can you pick them for me?
Yeah, I can pick them for you.
Yeah, I want you to do it.
Okay.
I'm never good at. I don't buy lottery tickets for that reason. So.
Yeah, I'll draw them. It's crazy, and I've said this on like every episode. There are hundreds of questions in here.
And you always pick the same ones?
Well, one of the same ones keeps coming out. I was like, that's impossible. You'd think I would have loaded it.
Yeah.
All right. So question one. What moment in your life do you hold the most dear?
Jeez,
that's a big question.
That's a big one to answer first. Oh man.
Like, is there something like I call them
like aha moments?
Yeah, or anything. I mean, something where you go, oh, I remember this very well because it was a big turning point. Something changed.
I remember. I mean, and this is going to sound corny, but I remember the first time that I told my partner that I loved her. Oh, yeah? And my whole body just turned hot. And I just kind of felt...
That's interesting.
It was a very intimate, special time. So I think that was probably the most one that
Isn't that something? Yeah. How that affects you physically?
Because you tell people all the time, I love you, I love you, I love you. But whenever it's the real... deal, you just kind of
It's interesting that you said that because I went through a divorce, and so when I was back out in the dating world, I was terrified of love.
Right.
I was like, I don't know about saying I love you anymore. I'm not sure about this. And so I was my wife and I had been friends, and then we started dating, which terrified me because I really liked her as a person. And I was like, is this going to screw up our friendship? And just all that. And so we had dated for a little while, and I started getting that feeling like I wanted to say I love you. Yeah. And I remember we were at my trailer. Back then I lived in a little trailer. It was after the hurricane. Rita had passed. And one night, I don't know, we were standing in the kitchen and just kind of talking, and I just was staring at her, and I said, I feel like I want to say this, but and she was like, I know, I feel it too. We didn't even say it. And I was like, I feel like I want to say I love you. And it was the same thing. It was like something popped. Yeah. And just dripped all over the moment.
Like your whole person just...
When I said it, I knew then too. I go, I do love her. I do. This isn't just me wondering.
Yeah. You're just like,
saying it, professing it.
This is it.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. I wonder if everybody has that.
I don't know, but that's why I know even when it's hard. Like you said that earlier about it being work, and it is work sometimes, and it's not always like a big roaring bonfire either. But I do know because of that moment still. No matter what happens, I go, but I know I love her. I don't ever lay around at night and go, do I still love my wife?
Never.
It never occurs to me. I hear people talk like that, and I go, I don't ever have the... She might have them, and she didn't tell me, but I'm telling you, I never lay around and think those
I still ask her. I'm like, you sure you love me still? And she's like, yes.
I do tell my wife a lot, I feel sorry for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
I tell her that, too.
I complain.
Yeah. I complain, and I'm a lot. I'm a lot to deal with. So.
Oh, me too.
But I know it. I know I am.
Yeah,
so.
I see it. Like, that's right. Awareness. I know my mess.
Yeah.
I'm a mess, though.
People tell her, too. I had somebody tell me, one of my bosses, he was like, you give Amanda hell, don't you? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I can tell. I'm like, well, whatever.
That's funny.
It is what it is.
I like that.
She's still with me.
Yeah, I know. I told Michelle, I said, I just bet you people go, why is she with him? Why? She could have done something else.
Yeah. She always says it's never a dull moment, so it's, I'm always interesting with her. So.
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Free entertainment.
Oh, yeah, right. I know. I told Michelle, I hope at some point, sometimes at least I make you laugh a little bit.
Right.
Or at least just interested because of just going, wow, what is going on in your head?
Right.
Because, oh man, there's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Mine too.
Oh, this is interesting. I mean, this hasn't been asked before, but this is kind of the premise of this whole show. This question says, why not just worry about you and yours? Which kind of goes back to what's on that coffee mug that belongs to you.
Yeah.
Why do good when you don't really have to? Nobody's making it mandatory, the word being good isn't mandatory.
Yeah.
So why do it? Why share? Why help kids? Why teach?
I think just because I want to be that person for, that somebody else was for me,
Yeah. Passing it on.
Yeah. I don't want kids to think that they can't do something.
Why do you want that, though? It's kind of scratching a little bigger.
I don't know.
Hole in the thing.
Because I don't want them to feel alone. I don't want them to feel...
I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I like questions like that because I do. I think those are fascinating
because I've felt
things.
alone, I've felt that way before. I've been in the dark places, and so, I see adults in those places too. So, I want to reach out as much as I can.
I got to tell you, that right there, what you just said, to me, that's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything in the whole world is exactly that.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the secret of suffering.
Yeah.
Is you were alone and it created in you a desire to be there for other people who may be alone. That's the only way things get healed. And it's crazy because if you hadn't have maybe had that hole, you wouldn't perceive that hole that you can go
Never
to other
really
people.
Never really thought about that. So
it's just a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah. Why do I do what I do every day?
Yeah, why do it? Because, I mean, there are people who will look at somebody and go, whatever, toughen up.
Yeah, I can't.
But you don't.
I mean, sometimes there are days where I'm just like, I just can't with this kid today.
Yeah.
But the next day I'm gonna perk up and try to do it again.
Yeah.
Try to help them. And I will say that I just finished my first year of teaching, so I started last January. So it's been 1 year, and the last year was the last 6 months of school was very tough, but this one that just ended has been very rewarding. So I think that comes with me just showing back up a lot. These kids need people to care about them.
It's true. So many people do.
And I'm not going to sit there and complain about fickle things that occur, with adults at school. Things that occur where,
like the bureaucracy of the whole system.
I have a job. I'm concerned about the kids. I have concerns about the kids. I want to teach them. I want them to have fun, and that's what it is. Yeah,
I mean, and then you get responders like this.
Yeah.
And then you're able to see. It's kind of like, I guess, you plant something in the ground. I love gardening. I don't have time to do it, but I do remember a while back, I was like, I'm going to really try this. And so there was nothing better after you plant it, it's just the waiting begins,
Right.
And then going out there and seeing
I didn't even know that it was going to happen,
Yeah.
It's
and all of a sudden the sprout comes up out of the ground. You're like, there it is. So it is, that was worth it. The digging and the,
Yeah.
watered this every day and it actually popped up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it makes you want to do it again and keep going. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. I don't know. That right there just, it makes it all worth it. It makes hope. It's hope.
Totally.
Love that. Good answer.
Yeah.
I like this question. Do you have any personal heroes?
Oh goodness.
Anybody just jump in your mind?
I mean, I can think on like different tiers.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Like historically, locally,
But yeah, I mean, all my mentors, the artists that I admire, and watching how they are teachers and also artists, you know, watching them kind of balance that is pretty heroic for me. I think, you know, I mean, I feel like they embody what I want to be. So,
are there any voices that you go to? And I mean like voices in your head.
I hear my teachers all the time.
Yeah,
those voices.
Yeah, you know, that's what I'm thinking.
The ones that, you know, I still kind of talk to today.
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, I could name them if you'd like.
No, you're welcome to, but I do understand what you mean. Yeah. You know, is there anybody that you read, like where you go, this is a voice, a book, or a writer? Not a big reader.
No, I mean, I admire musicians a lot. I listen to a lot of music, artists and things like that. Jennifer Knapp was a contemporary Christian singer. I think I mentioned her to you.
Yeah, you did, actually.
Yeah, she was kind of somebody that I always listened to growing up, and she was a contemporary Christian singer, and then kind of just went off the radar for a while, and then came back came out as a gay woman. Right. And so I think when I met her in Austin when I was living in Austin.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was like in a tiny little church kind of thing where she was doing a little tiny performance, and met her afterwards.
So great.
Yeah. It kind of like closed off that circle of,
so you were already like kind of following her to a degree, right?
Well, and I mean, because when I was younger, I wanted to be like this Christian singer.
Really?
Girl. Yeah, it was. You
sing?
I do.
Oh, wow.
I want to get back into it, but that's off.
Yeah. No, I get you, but still interesting.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so she kind of like closed that circle for me where I'm like being both sides. Her music always kind of resonated with me just because it was a little bit raw and very honest in what she was singing about, and very poetic in her writing. Yeah. It was unlike any other kind of Christian music I had ever listened to, and I just felt so connected to her work and her words. And so I kind of I cling to that. Ooh.
That's okay.
And kind of kept it close to me because I just really admired who she was before she came back and came out. You know? And then when she came out, I was already out, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like how crazy that makes so much sense that I was kind of identifying with her struggles because I could hear my own voice.
Yeah.
In her
that
work.
Totally makes sense.
So she's one of the personal, I think, heroes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I know what you mean by that. I mean, I'm a reader, and I guess on my spiritual journey was a lot like that when I would begin to read a particular thinker and maybe reading their works out of order, but then years later, even recently, I would go, I hadn't read this book yet. It may be an older book, and I go to read it, and I go, oh, this thing they went through, this struggle is something that I went through as well. And that's why you start to learn that the voice makes sense at that point.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know.
Right.
They had a similar background or struggle, or they come from a similar place.
Right.
So it starts to make sense all those years later.
Exactly.
That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been fun.
Yeah,
I'm actually really glad I finally got to meet you because, man. Jody, like, spit your name out that quick. We had just finished his episode, and I said, man, if you I'm always chasing the good news, I guess, really. Right. And I said, there's a lot of people I just don't know.
Yeah.
And he said, I know who you need to talk to. And he just said your name. Jody. And so that's when I started chasing you.
Yeah. And I apologize because it went to my junk messenger folder. I didn't even know I had a junk messenger folder, but apparently if you're not friends with somebody,
sure,
that goes to that.
I guess so.
And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even see this message, and I was freaking out because it was so long.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. That, believe it or not, I've got a lot of those kinds of lures out there. And honestly, you start, I know this sounds crazy, but I honestly think maybe people are a little put off. I've had, well, really? with it being, it is an odd thing to have a show that's not sensational. It's not about what's popular. This show isn't about good stuff, but it's not about like whatever's hot right now or whatever's like the next big event right now. A lot of the media we're used to is either very juicy,
right,
sensational, right, maybe even negative, but in a way where it's just like, ooh, that's so delicious, it's so negative, and I can have a lot of feelings about it. That stuff is sort of addictive.
Yeah.
And so this is not that at all. This is just meant to be like a baseline of, I mean, really, I call it the golden seam. It's like this thread that's running through our whole culture out here, and we don't even realize like all this good stuff.
Good acknowledgement.
Base plate of goodness that's out there, or we're not talking about it in a real deep way. It's like, because I see a lot of magazine covers with this person got this award or this person got this recognition, and I'm not saying I don't think that's bad stuff. It's good,
but people like to complain.
yeah, we want to complain, right? I mean, I complain, you know, but I always want to find a way out.
That's good.
That's it. I want to find a way out. And I think maybe what I'm learning is that a lot of other people are hungry for authenticity.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. We watch the news, and I think right now there's a big question mark. It's like, is this the truth?
Right.
Or is it not? Was that person real? Yeah, fake news. And so I thought, I actually suffer from this too, because I feel my emotions get tied up in something. I go, now hang on a second. Is this an authentic feeling, or am I being manipulated?
Yeah,
I mean, by both sides of whatever spectrum.
Exactly.
So having something where people come on a show and bleed a little bit.
Right.
I mean, there's actually, I know it sounds crazy, but there's a little sacrifice that's made when you come on a show like this.
Totally.
You're
I didn't know what to expect.
Revealing yourself, in a way that maybe you don't always do.
Right.
We all do, and it makes people, I think for me, it's like, oh, you've given me a little bit of sacred space.
Yeah. We've shared some pretty intimate stuff too, talking about.
Yeah. And so, potentially 4 people will hear this.
Yeah.
No, actually, believe it or not, we've had like 5,000 or 6,000 listeners right now. So that's awesome. That's pretty good for a little show that's kicked off in October. It's growing day by day. People see someone they know, and they're like, hey, this is my buddy or whatever.
Yeah.
Pass it around.
Yeah.
So how do people cyber stalk you?
How?
Yeah, what's the best way to, like, if somebody's like, I hated what you said on Find the Good News, and send you an ugly email. No, I'm joking.
I guess on Messenger.
Yeah, Facebook's the best way to find your work and like see what's going on.
I mean, I have a website, but my website's kind of hard to find because it has my first name initial.
Okay.
So.
Is this your website right here? KM.
Yes, that is me.
Okay. KMEAGAN green.com.
Yep, that's me.
You can tell
the K stands for Kimberly.
Is that your first name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I look like a Kimberly? No.
I don't know. Not now. Now you do. No, I do. I don't. See, I wasn't sure.
I love that the croissant Megan pusher thingy is the thing that came.
Yeah. I've got a picture.
My accidental erased like backside.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I was more concerned with like this right here.
Because I made it on like quick little demo for the kids.
But. Well, if you follow me on if you follow Find the Good News on Instagram, I posted a picture of this on there before you got here, and it's you pushing this croissant across my TV screen.
With my angry face or whatever that face. I don't even know what that face is.
Well, my son and I were looking at your work. I think my son follows you on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's been to your website because I was showing him your paintings.
My Instagram doesn't really have a lot of art
but he went here, I think, and so he's been looking. He said, "Oh, I've looked at all of these before." We were really digging this particular body of work, and I don't know how old this work is.
That's kind of old. Yeah, I'm gonna have the updated images from the show eventually.
Okay.
There.
I wondered about that.
Hopefully I'll get some good shots whenever they get installed. So
yeah, and good luck with that too.
Thanks,
I mean,
man.
because I know with the shipping, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
See if they make it.
Well, being the first time you've done it, I mean, it's a real
And I'll
mystery.
be up there, so it'll be good.
When are you heading up there?
I leave on the 30th through the 1st.
Wow.
So,
well, I hope that's
break.
a wonderful experience.
Yeah. I'm excited. Get to see some friends that I haven't seen in a while. So
yeah.
Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City, here I come.
I've never been to Kansas City.
No,
Missouri,
I've only heard the song.
Yeah. Going to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Kansas City, here I come.
And so you can sing. There you go.
That was my joking.
Well,
voice.
it's a joke sing. It's just a taste, folks. Just a taste.
You can catch me on Instagram if you want some singing.
I love you just